As aspirants, many people say, एक बार ऑफिसर बन जाओ, सारा सिस्टम हिला दूंगा, ना खाऊंगा, ना खाने दूंगा। अपनी ईमानदारी और काम के चर्चे सारे देश में होंगे। But when the actual time comes, very few people have the courage to actually shake the system and make it deliver what it actually promises to the people. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Backstory of Inspirational Officers. आज के एपिसोड में हम जिस ऑफिसर के बारे में बात करेंगे उन्हें एक हीरो बुलाना शायद हीरो शब्द का ही सम्मान होगा और ये हीरो इस देश की सबसे पहली वुमेन IAS टॉपर है। I am talking about Mrs. Rajni Sekhri Sibal, a woman with a spine who with the heart of a poet and the soul of a truly honest human embodies what the perfect officer denotes. Born in 1960 in Canada, Mrs. Sibal did her graduation in chemistry and masters in economics. 1986 में she became the first female topper of the prestigious UPSC exam and got assigned with the Haryana cadre. उन्हें पोइट्री लिखने का शौक बचपन से ही था, but she was not someone who would be upfront about her poetry. It was quite late in her life that she reluctantly decided to publish her poetry, but more on that later. The incident that brought Mrs. Sibal to the limelight and actually defines her character as one of the most forthright officers of Indian bureaucracy is the famous JPT recruitment scam. 2002 में, when she was posted as Director, Primary Education in Haryana, it was Mrs. Sibal जिन्होंने इस स्कैम को एक्सपोज करके देश को बताया कि किस तरह करप्ट पॉलिटिशियंस अपने भ्रष्टाचार से मेरिट का गला घोट रहे हैं। She was asked to be a part of this fraud, but Mrs. Sibal ने प्रेशर के अंडर सकम करने के बजाय उस अलमीरा को जिसमें ओरिजिनल मेरिट लिस्ट थी लॉक करके सील कर दिया और जूनियर्स के सामने अलमीरा को बैंडेजेस से बांध के बैंडेजेस पे जूनियर्स से साइन कराए। प्रूफ के लिए शी आस्क्ड द जूनियर्स टू क्लिक द फोटोग्राफ्स ऑफ द साइंड एंड सील्ड अलमीरा। इसके बाद तो उनका ट्रांसफर होना ऑब्वियस ही था, बट द सुप्रीम कोर्ट took notice of this incident and ordered a CBI inquiry in the case. Inquiry के बाद सारा स्कैम सामने आ गया and 55 people including Om Prakash Chautala, the Chief Minister of Haryana, was found guilty. For her heroics in exposing the JPT recruitment scam, Mrs. Sibal was presented with the Indian of the Year award in the category of Unsung Heroes by NDTV in 2013. While receiving the award at the podium, she was asked by the journalists that how hard it was to stand up against political pressure. To which she replied that in her 25 years career at that point, she had had 2 masters before her, which were her conscience and the Constitution of India. She acknowledged that it had been tough, but in the words of Tagore, it was about akla chalo, which meant as a true to self bureaucrat, one has to tread the path alone. However, with conviction and a certain amount of determination, one can be clear in one's mind. If black and white are clear and one knows the difference between right and wrong, there is very little pressure. इतने आसान शब्दों में Mrs. Sibal explained the role of a hero and actually showed that great action is simply only if one has the conviction to stand by one's principles. Besides this, Mrs. Sibal was responsible for international cooperation and disaster management policy formulation as well as coordination of response and relief in the event of a severe disaster in the country. उन्होंने different states में cyclones, droughts, landslides, floods and cloudbursts के during बहुत ही खूबी से response और relief का काम किया है। As a bureaucrat, Mrs. Sibal wore many hats. But she was not only a capable officer, but is also a gifted author and poet as well. और उन्होंने अभी तक 8 books लिखे हैं. Her work is broadly based on 3 themes. First is based on her experience as a bureaucrat, second on her poetry, and third, which she likes to call her lockdown writing. Her writing journey began with a coffee table book titled Kamdhenu, in which she presented the various kinds of cows found in India. The idea struck her in Sikkim, and while discussing the book with her publisher, उनकी poetry का जिक्र छिड़ गया, and the publisher insisted her to publish her poetry. जैसे कि मैंने पहले भी बताया था, Mrs. Sibal was very reluctant initially, लेकिन उनकी दोस्त रस्किन बॉन्ड, जो कि एक renowned author है, उन्होंने उनको कन्विंस किया कि उन्हें अपनी पोइट्री पब्लिश करनी चाहिए. फिर क्या था? Her coffee table book, कामधेनु, Cows of India, and her first poetry collection, Clouds End and Beyond, got released one after the other. उनकी बाकी लिखी किताबों के नाम हैं Are You Prepared for a Disaster, Fragrant Words, The Haunting Himalayas, Asadiri, Women of Influence, 10 Extraordinary IAS Careers, and The Guru, Guru Nanak's Sakhis. Rajni Sekhri Sibal is one of the few officers who has successfully drafted her experience as an administrator in various departments in the form of books. She does not like to accept it, neither wears it on her sleeves. But Mrs. Sibal is a smooth feminist who, through her book, Women of Influence, 10 Extraordinary IAS Careers, has paid homage to India's most brilliant women IAS officers. And she, in her discussion on the book, mentions that women don't make a big deal of things that they do, and that's why most of their stories go unrecorded. She says that it is this dedication to profession among women, without being boastful about the achievements, that made her write the book. And ये point कहीं ना कहीं Mrs. Sibal पर भी suit करता है. She doesn't like to make a big deal out of the great work that she has done as a bureaucrat, and continues to do so as an author and a poet. The whole nation is indebted to officers like Rajni Sekhri Sibal, who put nation above personal interests and continues to contribute in various ways, despite not being asked to. Mrs. Rajni Sekhri Sibal has had many firsts in her life. She started as the first female topper of the IAS exam in 1986 and retired as the first ever secretary of the Ministry of Fisheries in 2020. She is currently serving as the independent external monitor of the Security Exchange Board of India and EXIM Bank. In her illustrious bureaucratic career spanning over 35 years, Mrs. Sibal took charge of various departments, first under the government of Haryana and then under the government of India. और हर रोल में उन्होंने अपनी छाप छोड़ के भारतीय ब्यूरोक्रेसी के बेहतरीन ऑफिसर्स की लिस्ट में अपनी जगह बना ही ली. She is a hero, not only for an aspirant or an officer, but for every conscious citizen of India. बैक स्टोरी का ये एपिसोड आपको कैसा लगा? कमेंट्स में ज़रूर हमें बताइए और इस वीडियो को लाइक और शेयर करना मत भूलिए. रजनी सेखरी सिबल जी की स्टोरी से अपने दोस्तों और जानने वालों को इंस्पायर कीजिए. और हाँ, प्लीज डोंट फॉरगेट टू सब्सक्राइब टू ऑफिसर्स ऑन ड्यूटी so that we can keep bringing more stories like this to you. All the best.